Elon Musk, I've never met him, though I suspect he might be an alien. Everybody in India knows the story of Trailanga Swami, one of the famously long-lived yogis. He lived 280 years. The human body is clearly an amazing biological machine. So is it possible to freeze it and make it again alive after decades or centuries? Why not? But my question would be, why?
Thank you, Sarvapriyandanda ji, for coming onto the podcast. It's really an honor. Who knew that we'd be meeting for the third time, first in New York, then in Jharkhand, and now here in our home studio in Delhi. It's very nice. For anybody watching that might not know about Swamiji and his work, he's actually the head of the Vedanta Society in New York. He often talks about many topics in regards to religion, spirituality, and Vedanta. So now that that's been said, I wanted to start talking about a topic that I heard you talk in a lecture you gave recently. It was in regards to consciousness and consciousness studies. You were saying that you believe that as time moves forward, only more and more kind of studies, theoretical and practical, will be coming and booming in regards to the science side of consciousness studies. You were also saying that science and religion, spirituality, they have different perceptions and perspectives in regards to consciousness. And the reason I really want to talk about this is because a lot of people, especially in the Western culture, as you were saying, they have the perception that consciousness and the mind are one. But that's not the same in spirituality, in religion, and Vedanta. So could you elaborate a little bit on that?
Well, first of all, Aryan, thanks for having me under the tree. Here we are under the tree.
Yep.
I really like this one.
Oh, thank you. My mom designed it, so
It's beautifully done.
She's great. Yeah.
Yes, it's wonderful to be meeting with you once again. And you're right. There are these different perspectives on consciousness, and you're right that in the West, and why just the West? The modern perspective on consciousness and mind, they regard them as one and the same thing. The words consciousness and mind are used interchangeably. You often see consciousness, mind, intelligence being used interchangeably. And there's a good reason for that. The reason for that is when we introspect, when we look within ourselves, we feel aware, we have thoughts, we have emotions, we have memories, we have desires, we have pleasure, and we have suffering. We have waking, dreaming, sleeping. All of these seem to be, a first-person internal experience. So it's sort of natural to regard them as being the same thing, sort of. And that's how, if one doesn't think too deeply about it, it's natural to take mind, intelligence, awareness, consciousness as a kind of a bundle. But in Indian philosophy, in Indian spirituality from ancient times onwards, the distinction between consciousness and mind was very clear. In ancient Sankhya, yoga philosophy, for example, the body is something that is, first person, and we all experience it as a third person also. Like it's everybody sees this as a physical object. The mind is something that we all experience internally. Each of us is experiencing our own thoughts, emotions, memories, our personality internally. And that which enables us to experience the body and the mind, that one is consciousness. This is a subtle distinction, but it is a clear distinction. You see, one very good, elegant way of understanding the distinction between mind and consciousness is whatever you can experience is an object. By definition, object is that which appears to the subject. You are the subject, and the world is your object. But so is the body. The body is also an object to us. We experience it. We are experiencing it right now, all of us do. And then go be a little more subtle, look inwards, sensations. Warmth and cold, and if you have an itch, if you have a cough, those sensations are also objects because they are being experienced. color and form and sound, smell, taste. These are also objects. They are also being experienced. Make it even more deep. If you go even deeper, deeper means subtler. We have thoughts, we have memories, but they are also objects. Even our thoughts and feelings, emotions, those are also objects. So whatever is an object is something that's appearing to the subject. And in the way we think in Indian philosophy, in yoga, in Sankhya, in many other schools, the subject is consciousness. And whatever appears to it is an object. That means even the mind. By mind, I mean thoughts, memories, ideas. Those are appearing to you. Therefore, they are all objects and they are not consciousness. So this is how we distinguish between mind and consciousness. There are many other aspects to it. Usually, the subject, you or I or whoever is watching this, we all, before we reflect upon it, we see ourselves as a bundle. Body, I am this, sensations, memories, personality, and awareness. Yeah, if you insist there is something called awareness, yes, there is. All of it, we take it as one bundle. We don't investigate this. Yeah, what Sankhya, Yoga, Vedanta, they investigate and try to understand consciousness and mind separately.
Wow. Okay. Now that you're talking about like the physical body and the physical form, I wanted to touch a topic of cryogenics, just because I don't know if you've seen some of the documentaries, some of the reels people have been making these days. I mean, obviously it's a lot of the, wealthy people that are kind of doing this, but you see people are actually freezing themselves, right? They're putting themselves in kind of like a chamber or whatever, and in the hopes that decades later, maybe centuries later, they can be, for lack of better words, defrosted. But in hopes that, maybe their physical diseases, maybe, cancer or anything, there might be a cure for it, right? In the hopes that, as technology advances through time. I wanted to talk to you about that because I've talked to some other people who have said that it's possible, right? That the body does not completely die and the body can be resurrected. So that's very interesting. But then I wanted to get your point of view. Because I feel like a lot of people are curious about this, and I feel like it's important to let them know not only what the ethical choice is, but even if it's logical or practical at all, right?
I've heard of it, and it seems to be an in thing now, something that people, super rich people, especially in Silicon Valley and other places, are trying to do. The whole goal seems to be to live forever, or at least live, with a young and healthy body for a very, very long time. It's interesting that you should bring this up because a few years ago, I got an offer from Hollywood. Somebody
Wow.
called me.
Hollywood.
Hollywood. Somebody called me and said, "How would you like to be in a film with William Shatner?"
Oh, okay.
And I said, yes, because we grew up as kids in India in our generation. We had just this one or two American serials on Indian TV on Doordarshan, and one of them was Star Trek. So as kids in our generation, we grew up with Captain Kirk, William Shatner as Captain Kirk, the captain of the Enterprise. And so yes, I said, all right, I want to be with William Shatner in a film or something, in a documentary. So there is a documentary. I think it's called The Unknown or something like that. It's on History Channel. It's on American TV anyway. It's a well-known series, and in the second season, one episode was The Secret of the Yogis.
Oh, okay.
And what they were interested in was, how do yogis live so long? So exactly this project, they said that a lot of people, some of them are trying to freeze themselves so that the body can live longer and maybe resurrect them then when the technology is advanced enough to rejuvenate them, cure diseases and stuff like that. And what would be the perspective from an Indian spiritual, viewpoint? So in the interview, I said, look, you are immortal already. The body dies, but you're not the body. The whole attempt to save the body desperately at any cost is because we are not even investigating the possibility of whether we are really just this body. Is that all that there is? Or are we something more than this? Did we exist before this body came? And right now, are we something more than this body? And will we continue to exist after this body is gone? And every religion, every spiritual tradition, in fact, every religion on earth has this one thing in common: that death is not the end. Death is not the end. Physical death is not the end. So, yes, whether the body itself can live for a long time, I mean, I don't know much about it. I mean, everybody in India knows the story of Trailanga Swami, who was in Banaras, one of the famously long-lived yogis. He's supposed to have lived, there's sufficient documentation actually, which goes to show that he lived a pretty long time. He probably lived for 280 years. So I told the story of Trailanga Swami, but I emphasized the fact that we actually do not die at the death of the body. And we go on from lifetime to lifetime. It's not just Vedanta. Every Indian spiritual tradition says that. In fact, every religion says that we do survive the death of the body, but multiple lifetimes, multiple bodies, this is something that our spiritual traditions, Indian spiritual traditions stress, Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism. So that's what I said to them. When they finally put it on air, I saw the clips. So they had the story of Trailanga Swami and the yogis living for a long time, but the Vedanta part of it and the spiritual, philosophical part of it, they cut out. I don't think they are particularly interested in that. But yeah, to answer your question directly, the human body is clearly an amazing biological machine. So is it possible to freeze it and resurrect it and make it again alive after decades or centuries? In principle, why not? But my question would be, why? Why take all that trouble? Take a little bit of trouble to investigate what we are. Are we truly, other than the body, can we truly transcend the body? The evidence of all spiritual philosophies and any number of spiritual masters across the centuries and millennia. Why turn a blind eye to that? Why take this enormous trouble and painful process and who knows, an uncertain future of trying to live in a frozen body? Yeah, not just freezing yourself in cryogenics. There are other things, so even crazier stuff like, uploading your personality into the cloud or something like that.
Yeah, there's a show called Upload on Amazon Prime that literally it says that there's going to be artificial not an artificial intelligence, but a virtual
reality
afterlife,
virtual
afterlife upload. Yeah.
Well, all religions are here to tell us you don't need to have a virtual afterlife. You have a real afterlife. So yeah, spend a little time investigating this. Then you'll see this whole effort might be, it's worthwhile to explore that. There might be medical implications. There might be spin-offs which are beneficial to people around the world. But in the long run, I think the spiritual investigation, that's the path to go. And that's something that everybody can do.
Yeah, no, beautifully said. I liked how you touched on the topic of kind of like elaborating on that front, because even like I kind of have thought about that a lot, like a lot of these shows, whether you watch like these vampire shows or whatever, it shows a lot of times that people that have immortality and are even living for thousands of years, they're not happy. People think that immortality is going to give them happiness, right? And this made me think a lot, but when you see, I know it's obviously their shows, they're fiction, but you kind of get an understanding because the fact that death is the ultimate truth gives a value to life, right? And that's my personal understanding, that because we know that there is an end, we try to cherish, at least we should cherish every moment. There's something called love, right? If you watch these shows, they've been living on thousands of years. I mean, how many partners are you going to have? They might die. I mean, some people, it's going to have its own issues. Immortality isn't
exactly
the answer. Yeah.
If the immortality, the way it is, the people are conceiving of it as freezing the body and resurrecting it all over again, it's basically they're trying to prolong what's going on right now. Now, if I'm not happy with things right now, if I prolong it 100 years or 500 years into the future, I won't be happy with it. They say, it is a nice saying that, repeating the same thing and expecting a different outcome, that's the very definition of insanity. So,
yeah,
you want to do the same thing why would you think you would feel any better about it 500 years later? Unless the inner person is transformed. And if the inner person is transformed, that's what spirituality wants to do. Vedanta or Buddhism or any of the traditions. If the inner person is transformed, then then this very life, you'll have a different perspective on this very life. Maybe right now where I'm unhappy, I could actually be much happier.
Yeah, no, very well said. Now that we're talking about this topic, I wanted to kind of touch the idea of reincarnation, just because, not only because it's written throughout scriptures or religions, different religions, but also because science has a totally different perspective on it. But that being said, you also see all these documentaries and stuff where people are getting these near-death experiences, and lots of kids, 6 years old, 5 years old, or whatever, they're talking about their past life, and there's hour-long, documentaries on it where the father is saying, "I'm not religious, I don't believe in any of this." But then after my son started saying the name of the that he was a pilot or something for the army, and they were doing this and that, and he died like this. He said, I started researching him, and he found that the name that the kid said was exactly true, right? That the way he died was historically recorded in books and on sites and stuff. So I wanted to talk to you about reincarnation to people that not only might not believe it, but the people that are curious about the concept of reincarnation. So please feel free.
Yes, it's one of the axiomatic concepts in Indian philosophy, the idea that we have many lives. It's sort of accepted, except by the materialists, by every school of Indian philosophy, Indian spirituality. They say that we have had many lives. Science denies this because, from a completely materialistic perspective, science considers us to be just this body. And it's clear that at physical death, the body surely does die. The body disintegrates. You burn it, or you cremate it, or you bury it, or whatever, it's gone. So if we are just this body, then after death, we are gone. But all religions speak about a soul, something that is more than the body. So when the body dies, there is no particular reason why that should be gone too. Our mind and our consciousness. Now, materialists would say that your mind and consciousness are being generated by the body, by the brain and the nervous system. So when the brain and nervous system are dead, in a dead body, you won't have a mind or consciousness and left. But if that's not so, if the mind consciousness is something independent working through the body-mind, then that opens up the possibility that this mind consciousness could survive potentially the death, the physical death of the body. Now, you talked about evidence. There is, I believe, I haven't investigated this, but I have come across books and reports. I have met people doing research on this. The University of Virginia, I believe, there's been a long-running project to record and archive evidence of survival after death and past life experiences. So they have a huge amount of material, it seems. And I've met people who have done research on this. So there is quite a bit of evidence, actually. The thing is, a hardcore materialist would try to explain away or ignore that evidence. Let me give you a little bit of a reasoning, what we call in Sanskrit yukti. Why would you believe that something survives, that we survive the death of the physical body? The reason is, when we are interacting with people, I'm talking to you, you're facing me and you're looking at me and interacting with me, you clearly feel I'm a person. You don't think that you're interacting just with the body. I also feel I'm not interacting just with the body. There is a conscious being in that body. And this is common sense. Everybody feels that. We all feel that. Why just in human beings? We feel that our pets have, there's a conscious being there. We are not interacting with a dog body or a cat body. We're interacting with this sentient being called a dog or a cat.
Completely makes sense, yeah.
Now, This part is not controversial. Everybody feels that. But the next part is interesting. When the body dies, what gives us the right to think that sentient being is dead? Just because we can't interact with it. We feel that sentient being, that conscious being was there in this body, and now this person is not talking, not listening, not responding, so clearly this person is gone. But if the physical body is dead, that sentient being which was in that physical body wouldn't be able to interact with us anyway if the body is not working anymore. It's like a door has been shut. If the door is shut, the person on the other side of the door can't interact with you. How do you know that? Clearly, medicine tells you that, doctors will tell you that the physical body is dead. But they're not telling you that the sentient being, the conscious being is dead and gone forever. Yeah. It could be that it exists, it's just we are unable to communicate with it. And the clinching piece of reasoning here is, if you were satisfactorily able to explain this mind and consciousness with the help of brain and nervous system, then I would say, yeah, you have a case. When the brain is gone, nervous system is gone, no mind, no consciousness. But that's precisely where consciousness studies is at right now, the so-called hard problem of consciousness, that we are unable to explain. Neuroscientists, consciousness studies experts, we are unable to explain how brain processes produce conscious experiences. Brain processes are neurochemicals. Brain processes are tiny bits of electrical activity in the synapses of our neurons. How is a little bit of electrical activity? How is a little bit of chemical activity? Consciousness. How is it a person? There's a gap. And until you explain literally how the brain is producing consciousness, if it is at all producing consciousness, until that time there remains a clear possibility that consciousness and mind are not literally the brain, and when the brain and the body are dead, that could still be existing. Then you bring together all this experience of past lives, all that evidence which is coming, and it seems more and more possible. And the entire culture, I find it frankly difficult to believe that all these religions across the world, including the first peoples, the Aborigines and the tribal societies in India and in other parts of the world, and all our major world religions, all of them say that something exists after death. Across all human civilizations, and across time, how could everybody be completely and totally wrong, and only today I, the materialist, am completely right? It seems a bit too much.
No, very well said. And I'm really glad that we're talking about these different, perceptions of science versus spirituality, because I think I was watching one of your lectures where you were talking about something that Vivekananda ji said, where he said that spirituality should be held to the same rigorous regard, rigorous scrutiny as science is, right? As scientific theories are. Now, I wanted to talk to you about that, because when he said that, do you think he also meant, because a lot of, I've talked to some people from a science background, and they constantly say that, look, I'm not saying that this religion isn't helpful, but at the same time, the historical aspect is contradictory to that of what we believe as scientists or from a science background. So when you say that it should be held to that scrutiny, should it be, on the same kind of front, whereas historically as well? Because that contradiction between science, historically speaking, and spirituality is where a lot of people from science background will be like, but that did not happen because this happened at that time. So could you elaborate on that?
Right.
Yeah.
So when Swami Vivekananda says religion should be held to the same rigorous standard of truth as science, he didn't mean all of religion and everything in religion. You see, what you're talking about is religions of the world have said many things about this cosmos, about the universe, about life, which have been clearly proved to be wrong. When science advances, we find we understand more about the universe, more about the world around us, and more about our own bodies. And which clearly religion had not got right, or religions of the world had got wrong. And the argument is, if they were wrong about all of that, they're probably wrong about the rest of it also, which, mind and consciousness also. So here we must note that there are religions which are faith-based. All religions are basically, they are not science. They are not actually trying to explain the world. At one time, we did not have a modern science the way we have it now. And so religion was giving us a worldview. It had something to say about everything. And some of those things were like fairy tales. Some of them were like unexamined beliefs. Or some of them were some things that religions said, I'm talking about religions across the world, were just the best that human beings could come up with at that particular time. And if they're superseded by science, as they have been, I think we have a duty to accept and understand and value what science says. And not hold on to something just because it's tradition. Not hold on to something just because an old book says it. Not hold on to something just because it's old and ancient. It might be nice as part of our culture, but if science has told you different now, then don't take that as the truth. Take science as the truth. And science also is going to evolve, and we're going to find out more and more things. But here, let me introduce something else. There is another approach in religion, especially in Indian traditions, especially in traditions in yoga, Vedanta, Buddhism. Multiple traditions are there in India, where first of all, the purpose was never to explain the external universe. All the theories, all of what these traditions have talked about should be taken as a method, as a path of, they are trying to point out something about ourselves. That you are the Atman, or your pure consciousness, or the emptiness of the apparent self. These are the core truths that these traditions are trying to point out. And I don't see anything in modern science which is either talking about those or has clearly said something different from the core teachings of these particular traditions.
Okay.
In Hindi, there are two words, jano, mano. Jano means to know. Mano means to believe.
Okay.
So mostly religion has been believe it, because the teacher said so, the book said so, the tradition said so, believe it. But these traditions, clearly, I know this for a fact in my own home tradition of Advaita Vedanta. It's a tradition of jano, know it. We'll have to investigate and know for ourselves. And what these traditions teach us, Advaita Vedanta tells you that you are not this limited physical body mind. You are limitless existence consciousness. And they mean something very clear and precise by it, which we can understand right here and right now if we choose to investigate it. Yeah. And that I don't see any scientific discovery contradicting it. Let me bring in, for example, someone, Sam Harris.
Sam Harris, yes.
Who is a very well-known atheist in the United States.
Yes.
He is an implacable critic of religions. He's an atheist. He doesn't believe in what religion says. In fact, he is very critical of religions. But at the same time, he has pointed out that there are at least two traditions, Advaita Vedanta in Hinduism and the Dzogchen Buddhism in Tibetan Buddhism, of which he's aware of, that there is clearly a kernel, a core of truth, which any reasonable person has to admit. So this is your most committed atheist. But at least somebody, not all atheists will accept it. At least this particular atheist also has an open mind about what, and he himself has practiced, and it does practice meditation, and he has explored these traditions with masters in these traditions. And he says you can't deny it. There is truth there.
Yeah, I think you did a podcast recently with Sam
Harris. Yeah, I did.
Yeah, that went well.
It went well, and I was ready for him to be combative about it, but he was more interested in comparing the Advaita traditions and the Tibetan Buddhist traditions. So the discussion was more or less limited to that. We kept it at that, and he was very respectful and very interested.
Yeah, no, I've seen some of his videos. He's like an atheist, but he has a very spiritual side at the same time, which is very good. Because to people that are in the process, to people that are in the process to kind of and curious about spirituality and religion, but at that point are either agnostic or atheist, it's really good to get someone who has a spiritual side to give them answers to their curiosity. So it's very good what he's doing as well.
Right. A lot of people, it gives a lot of people the permission, internal permission to be
Exactly.
scientific and spiritual at the same time.
Exactly. No, very well said. Took the words right out of my mouth. Now I wanted to do, because we are talking about science, about the differences between science and spirituality, I wanted to talk about mental illness. And this is after I watched one of your lectures where you discussed about mental illness, and you were discussing about, I believe it was not only like not just about mental illness, but you were talking about mystical experiences, and how if you like, there is truth to the fact that lots of I think it was APA or something you said invited you or something, and psychologists and therapists, they do agree that, look, we might not believe in these religious texts or the facts that the religions are saying, but you can't deny the fact and the data, right, that religion, spirituality in general, allows one to either experience mental illness a little bit less, or people that are religious and spiritual can cope with mental illnesses better. Now, that being said, I wanted you to elaborate on that mental illness spectrum, because I feel like, at least in New York and in the Western culture, mental illness is a big deal, right? Even for me personally, I struggled with the existential depression myself. There was a period of time where I kind of started questioning a lot of things, right? Not in just religion and spirituality, but in life as well, right? And I was in the process of really getting into spirituality, where it's like, okay, I'm not the body, right? But then that kind of made me feel like, wow, you know what? If I'm not the body, then what am I, right? And being an actor, being an artist, a singer, being having to produce content that will be looked at by the public, right? You kind of wonder, where like, okay, then what is the point, right? And that's what kind of messed up with my head, right? I was like, wow, what's the point of even acting and pretending to be these characters and just spreading more dishonesty? Because a lot of the roles you're portraying as an actor, they're just kind of telling stories which most of the time are dark. A lot of the times are not giving positive messages, right? There was a time where I played a cocaine dealer in a film, and I think I met you during that time. I had that crazy blonde hair, right? Now that part that's out of the picture now, but so that kind of like, it kind of takes a toll on your identity, and identity is a very big kind of subject in throughout the world, not just Western, because a lot of the time mental illness, depression comes from that struggle with identity. And for me, spirituality kind of helped me in that realization of identity. So could you please elaborate on that whole concept, not just for me, but because I feel like some people that might be watching this, because a lot of people that are struggling through mental illnesses, they kind of sometimes start to rely on spirituality because they're curious, right? Not about themselves, about the meaning of life, about truth, right? So for them, at least, if anybody's gotten to this point of the video, it means that they really are seeking answers, right? So if you can just kind of shed light on the concept of mental illness and what one can do about it, about identity, that'd be really, really nice. Yeah.
Yes, what you're referring to, I got this really interesting invitation from the American Psychiatrist Association, APA. Yeah, it's the most powerful body of psychiatry in the United States, in the world, I would say. And they have their headquarters in Washington, D.C. They invited people, leaders, faith leaders, religious leaders for a conference. So leaders of different religions and psychiatrists. And these are some of the top psychiatrists in the United States. I didn't know at that time that there were these two bodies. One is the American Psychology Association, another one is the American Psychiatry Association. Both of them are called AP, and both of them have their headquarters in Washington, D.C. and close to each other. And they intensely dislike each other. I didn't know that. But anyway, It was interesting. At one point, one of the leaders of a church asked this question. Look, you guys, psychiatrists, you never, they've always been traditionally, they've been hostile to religion. They've often looked at religion as a pathology, as a kind of a mental illness itself. So why are you calling us now? And that's when what you said, the one of the psychiatrists said this, what you just mentioned, that it's not that we are saying we are trying to promote religion, or we are saying that we believe in religion all of a sudden. No, but it's a fact. You can't argue with the data. You cannot argue with the facts, and the data is telling us that those who have deep, genuine connection with religion, they are less susceptible to mental illness, or if they do get mental illness, they are more resilient. They recover better. They handle it much better. So, and that was the reason they had called faith leaders. Yes, from a Vedanta perspective, just as the body can get illness, the mind too can get illness. As I just said, the body is an object for you. You see the body as an object. And you see the mind also. In that case, the mind is also an object. The problem is, in our popular culture and in science, in psychology, philosophy of mind, we tend to regard ourselves as the mind. We don't say I mean, we may say my mind, but what we say, we feel that I am the mind. So these thoughts, these emotions are who I am. But Vedanta tells us, Sankhya tells us, that if you are aware of your feelings, if you are experiencing your feelings, if you're experiencing your memories, if you're experiencing your thoughts, ideas, and desires, then they are all objects. Just like this table and this chair and this cloth are objects, this body is an object too, to you, the consciousness. Thoughts, feelings, emotions, ideas, positive and negative, they are also objects. They are all appearing to the same consciousness, right? If that's an object, that's what's called in Vedanta, it's called a subtle body, Sukshma Sharir, subtle body. So just as the physical body can get illness, subtle body also can get illness. Just as you would then extend the idea of medicine, you would treat the physical body's illness with medicine, with proper diet and rest and so on. Exactly like that, you would take a course of treatment for mental illness. Take the help of a psychiatrist, take the help of a counselor, take the help of meditation, of devotion, of surrender. So spiritual and psychological means of helping us to overcome mental illnesses are most welcome. Why not? We have a stigma on mental, as if there's something terribly wrong with it. If physical illness is something that needs to be cured, so does mental illness. It needs to be cured. One needs to deal with it. You are not it. If there is mental illness, there's nothing wrong with you, because from a Vedantic perspective, you are that one same pristine, changeless, ever-shining awareness. If the body is healthy, good, you are the same awareness. If the body is unhealthy, all right, you're still the same awareness. If the mind is peaceful, you're the same awareness. The mind is restless, you're still the same awareness. The awareness has not become restless. It's the thoughts and emotions which have become turbulent.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So, and we find, though the purpose of yoga, the purpose of meditation, of devotion, of jnana and knowledge, philosophy is not, the target is not to cure mental illness, the target is enlightenment, but it has the very welcome effect of helping us through these ups and downs in life.
Wow. And I really like the fact that you touched base on the treatment side of things, that if someone is going through mental illness, treatment is something that, that's what you go for. That's what the doctor will tell you, or the therapist would tell you. Now, I actually spoke to Sadhvi Bhagwati-ji. I don't know if you know who she is.
Yes.
From Paramat Niketan.
We have met.
Oh,
she visited us at the Vedanta Society recently in New York.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah. I think she was in New York. Yeah. That's great. No, I did a podcast with her in Rishikesh a couple months ago. I think it might have been almost a year ago. But I ask her the same question, and I wanted to ask you as well, just because I feel like people that aren't that might be watching or come across this video that aren't just like asking questions completely about spirituality, but are going through mental illnesses and just want to know that why, because a lot of times this happens. Now medicines, and let's say for example antidepressants, right, Bupropion or something, sometimes it always doesn't work, right? It's not like it's a complete cure. And a lot of people are still struggling because they're like, oh my God, you know, man, I don't know what my life is. I can't do anything about this. Okay, I got Bupropion, the doctor said this, let me take it. 1 month passes, 2 month passes. Then they're like, why don't I feel better? So in that aspect, when I asked Sadhvi Bhagavati Ji, she said she didn't completely radical, like say no to medication. She's like, okay, you can take it, but she said you should not be dependent on it, and you should also go to spirituality for answers. So could you also elaborate on that for people that are either curious or going through mental illnesses and want to know why the medicines are not working and what else they can do to kind of feel better about themselves and bring meaning to their life, you know?
Right. You're right, there's a crisis around the world, especially in the United States. I was watching a talk by Jonathan Haidt, a very well-known psychologist, and he gave a talk about mental illness in the universities in America now. In Gen Z, he was saying it's up to nearly 30%. This is incredible. There's 30% of university students in the United States are reporting some kind of mental illness, some form of it. Now, the response often has been over medication. Sudden reliance on just to take a pill and it'll be all right. Well, you take a pill, it might be a little better at best. It will not be all right. Because the roots of mental illness are ultimately in philosophical confusion and spiritual darkness. So you have to throw spiritual light on your life. It has to make sense. You have to have a deep sense of spiritual well-being. From that flows mental well-being. In Vedanta, for example, we talk about the 5 layers of the human personality. So there's the physical layer. This is this body, which is called the Annamaya Kosha, which literally means something that's produced, modified from the food that we eat, the water that we drink. That becomes this body. Then we have a subtler level called the pranic level, called the Pranamaya Kosha.
Pranic level, okay.
Then we have a mental level, emotions, thoughts, memories. That's called the mind level or the Manomaya. Then we have an intellect level, which is the Vijnanamaya. Our identity, our understanding of life, about the world, about ourselves, it's all there. And then we have a deeper spiritual self called the Anandamaya, the bliss level, Anandamaya, the bliss sheath. But that's not our real spiritual self also. The ultimate spiritual self, our real nature, is beyond all these five levels. So that's the pure consciousness, the Atman. That's what Vedanta talks about. Now, why I'm saying this is, problems at a subtle level will always become manifest at a more physical or more gross level. If I have spiritual darkness, if I have philosophical confusion about who I am, what I am, it will be manifest that's at the level of the Vijnanamaya. That will be manifest at the level of the Manomaya's mental illness. That will be manifest at the level of the Pranamaya as actual physical illness. And then come to the physical level and manifest itself as various kinds of problems in the body. So the roots of illness lie very deep. And the roots of wellness, the solutions also, you have to go deep. So yes, at one level, take the help of medicine. Better than medicine is counseling. Especially in the United States right now, there's something as part of psychological counseling, which I really like. It's called CBT, Cognitive Behavior Therapy. They are actually using it to help college students now. And then you have to go even deeper, which is at a philosophical and spiritual level. Change your concept of Who am I? What am I? I'm not just this body. I'm a spiritual being. I'm not even this mind. I'm a spiritual being. I'm the witness of the mind. I'm the witness of the mind when it is well, and I'm the witness of the mind when it is unwell. Yes, it's very natural. When you have physical illness, there are a lot of things that we cannot do. It incapacitates us. Similarly, even to a greater degree, as you said, when there is mental restlessness and unhappiness and anxiety, it will incapacitate us even more. But what Vedanta tells you, first of all, relax. You, not the body, not the mind. You, the witness of body-mind, you are still fine. None of this can touch you. You were fine before this episode. You will be fine after this episode. And amazingly enough, during the episode also, you are fine. Imagine the sky. There's a bright blue sky. And then storm clouds come. There's thunder and lightning or dust storm or whatever. But the space is not affected. The Akasha, where the clouds come and go. When there are no clouds, it's bright and blue, same Akasha. When the clouds come and seem to cover it all up and there's thunder and lightning and storm, same Akasha. The Akasha is not affected by the storm. Similarly, you, the consciousness, the spiritual self, you are not affected by either physical illness or mental illness. But yes, we need to deal with it. And the reason we need to deal with it is unless we are well, physically well and mentally well, we cannot progress either in our worldly lives or in our spiritual life. There's a saying, Shariram Madhyam Khalu Dharma Sadhanam, well-known saying in Sanskrit, which says the body is the first, is the primary instrument for dharma. So you have to keep the body healthy and functional. So also, even more so the mind. Yeah. So to sum it up, take the help of psychiatry, take the help of medicine, but more than that, the counseling, things like CBT, that helps more. More than that, the spiritual and philosophical paths, like what you find in Vedanta, in yoga, in Buddhism, they will work at a deeper level than the pill. The pill works at the physical level. It affects the serotonin and the dopamine and stuff like that in our nervous system, in our brain. And so in a certain gross way, they can help a little bit. But the deeper levels of the mind, sense of meaninglessness, sense of being harassed by our own mind, that will not go away until we change our idea of who am I and what is this mind.
Wow. Thank you so much. I might just say something to the camera here. For anybody that has come to this point of the video and might be struggling with some sort of mental illness or is having and feeling a sense of meaningless, I'm just here to tell you from a personal experience that this is not the end, okay? Of course, if you are thinking of harming yourself, please contact the suicide helpline. I will ask my team to note down in the description the suicide helpline for India, America, and we'll try to see if we can put other countries as well. As Swamiji was saying, do try to seek a therapist if you can. If you're taking pills, that's fine, but you can seek a therapist and you can go for therapy. There's lots of different forms here, so please take care of yourself. I'm here. If you have any other questions, you can contact me. So yeah, don't lose hope, and just be here within yourself. Thank you. Now that that's been said, I did want to get into something a little bit deeper because we are talking about a lot of science, a lot of spirituality. I wanted to discuss something that a lot of people my age, a lot of young guys and girls, they're wondering about the existence of aliens, the existence of life on other planets. Not only that, but because you have so many shows, so many movies and everything talking about the multiverse, right? Different dimensions, parallel universes. People are really curious, and nowadays you're having all these, projects that are talking about, Elon Musk is saying, you know what, it's time to go to Mars, buy land on the moon. All these things are happening that are beyond, beyond the concept of this Earth. So can you shed a little bit of light on these few things that I've said? So people can, yeah.
Aliens. Well,
Aliens, yeah.
we have this thing, when you have a monk or a spiritual person supposed to know everything about everything. But no, yeah, I love aliens. I love science fiction. I grew up reading Isaac Asimov and Arthur C. Clarke and many other. So I love science fiction. As I said,
Same. Yeah.
Star Trek and
Star Trek.
Captain Kirk and
Yeah.
William Shatner and
Captain
all of that.
Kirk.
Yep. And I would be very happy if they were actually aliens, and if they turned out to be intelligent aliens, if there were other civilizations across the galaxy and across the universe. Yes, it's entirely possible. There is actually a long-running program called SETI, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, and scientists have been looking for it without much success so far. But it's a very, very big universe, and what the reason why people find it fascinating, I find that reason fascinating.
Okay.
It's always a desire to know the unknown, that there could be very different forms of life, that there could be others, very different forms of intelligence also. And this very intuition that we have, that such things could be there, it tells me probably that there is. And if you just look around our world as it is, there are aliens all around us, because, the plants and animals which surround us. And I've seen pictures of deep sea fishes and creatures in the depths of the Atlantic or the Pacific Ocean. They just look like aliens, Yeah, so it's possible, but from a Vedantic perspective, I would say one thing that would be common to us and all the other aliens, that would be consciousness. To be an alien, you'd have to be a conscious being. Yeah, so that consciousness would be the same as us. You say, how do you know? Because here we are getting a little bit into philosophy. Consciousness in itself would be attributeless, would be featureless. All features, qualities, attributes belong to objects because we are aware of them. If consciousness had particular characteristics, and if you became aware of them, then they would become objects. They would not be. Characteristics of consciousness. They would be characteristics of some object. So consciousness in itself doesn't have qualities, characteristics. It's what in Sanskrit we call nirguna.
Nirguna. Okay.
Featureless or attributeless. So clearly, aliens would have. It's quite possible they would have tremendously different bodies. It's quite possible they would have tremendously different minds. But the consciousness which would experience those bodies and minds internally in those aliens is the same consciousness which is experiencing bodies and minds here. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, in all sentient beings, there is a knower internally. Right now, we have this knower inside us, which is knowing, experiencing. And then Krishna goes on to say in the Gita, in all beings, there's actually one knower. We think there are different beings, so there are different knowers. It seems to be like that. But he says there's only one knowing consciousness or one illumining consciousness in all beings. He says, I am that one consciousness in all sentient beings, even if they're aliens. I added that. Krishna didn't say it.
No. No, very beautifully said. Because we were talking about all this, I wanted to ask you about, Elon Musk saying going to Mars, right? Buying land on the moon. Not only from like a spiritual side, but also from an ethical side, even from a logical standpoint. Do you think it makes sense to try to inhabit other planets like, or other parts of the universe? Like, do you even think it's logical? And like, from your understanding, is it more about people wanting to commercialize this whole idea of, you know what, you can go to Mars and for the rich, take commercial flights back and forth? Or is it more of like, you don't want to use up all the resources on the planet and it's good for the planet, so we should diversify into other parts of the universes? What's your thought on that?
But take care of the planet first and foremost. I mean, we have only one planet. This pale blue dot in the dark vastness of the universe. But otherwise, why not? From a Vedantic perspective, it's other planets, other solar systems, they're all part of one physical universe. In our old cosmology, from most ancient times, texts like Yoga Vashishta, they talk about multiple worlds, multiple universes, and they are inhabited. There are sentient beings there, and they are interacting with each other. So it's an incredible thing. I mean, there's no science fiction book which I think comes close to the amazing stories that you find in a book like the Yoga Vashishta, for example. So yeah, Elon Musk, I don't know. I've never met him, though I suspect he might be an alien.
Good one.
Yeah. I really don't have any particular perspective on whether we should colonize Mars or not. I would love it if that happens, and sooner rather than later. But not because we're going to destroy this planet, so let's go to Mars. Yeah. No, we're going to protect this planet and make it sustainable. And we're going to go to Mars. That's wonderful.
Yeah. Maybe I'm going to go into a topic that's a little bit lighter, although it's still very deep. It might sound simple, but it's something that a lot of people definitely want to talk about, because I feel like a lot of listeners might be, interested in this because it's part of life. I wanted to talk to you about love, right? What, in your understanding, is the definition of true love?
The definition of true love, it has to be characterized by selflessness. Yes. If I am present in love, then it's not true love. It's still love, but it's mixed with something else. It's mixed with selfishness. So, the philosopher Arindam Chakravarti is one of the most brilliant philosophers alive today. He commented that he used to teach at Oxford University at one time. So it seems that they have a lane there in the university which is called logic lane. It's a narrow lane. And he says the lane of love is narrow. There's no space for two people there. So there has to be only one person, and it can't be you. If you really love, then it must be the person, the object of your love. It could be a cause, it could be a person, it could be a place, something. Whatever you love, only that must be present. So if you're saying true love, then true love must be selfless. Now, stepping back into the big picture, it's the greatest force that we have. Not just human beings. All of this world, basically our entire society, and animals and plants, and there's this one force which comes at one end as desire leading to procreation and reproduction. I mean, why are there flowers? Why are there birds building nests? It's all the same force. But at the other end of the spectrum, the same force is sublimated into art, into science, and ultimately into spiritual enlightenment. And this whole spectrum, starting from the most physical level, at the human level, at the animal level, at the plant and even microbial level, from that across emotional love, sentimental love, parental love, spousal love, love between friends, love in communities, love in national, international level, altruistic love, love of the abstract, of art, love of intellectuality, going ultimately up to love of God, and finally love itself as the ultimate reality. So this tremendous force, it's a huge spectrum. And at one end, it can be completely selfish. It is. Lots of people, love is completely selfish. But you ask true love, at the other end, it must be completely selfless.
Okay. Wow. No, that's beautifully said. I wanted to ask you a little bit about the entertainment industry, just because there might be some viewers that are interested in that. What's your perspective on content in general? Like, a lot of times there's so many different projects coming through, not only in Hollywood, Bollywood, so many different industries. Do you think movies, films, shows, music even, should it be made with a sense of meaning? Like, do you think people should think the the message that it's going to spread before they even make the content? Or because if you ask a lot of actors and a lot of people from the industry, they'll be like, well, it's art. It's not meant to always teach you something, that there doesn't have to be like a call to action from content. It can be plain entertainment. I wanted to dive into that because that's something there was this movie called Animal in Bollywood that got released. And I'm not saying whether it's good or bad. I mean, obviously the actors, they did a great job, but it kind of showcased a lot of masculinity in a negative way, a lot of, abuse, men kind of justifying not only marital affairs, but also abuse to multiple women. And although they weren't shown as, picture perfect human beings, what happened was, because of the day of social media, people kind of just create reels pretending to be these characters, right? So you see, if someone is there's a scene where I think Bobby Deol played this character, and he played it very well from an acting point of view. He did a great job in terms of embodying the role, but he kind of calls in a few girls, and then he, abuses them, etc., etc. One thing leads to another. And that scene, which kind of goes like this, and he kind of calls them in. People started making a lot of reels on that and trying to be him. And it got 1 million plus reels. Now, although it's just kind of acting and plain entertainment, one could say that, is that really the message that should be going out on social media, which is being viewed by kids these days? So I would love to know what your take on content overall and the industry is,
It's not something that I've given much thought to. I'll just share an insight from the Gita. When you just say it's just entertainment, it's meant to entertain. What does entertainment actually do for us? It gives us happiness. It gives us joy or pleasure. Now, the Gita points out that there are these two kinds of pleasure. One kind is, it's immediately pleasurable. But over a long period of time, it doesn't nourish you, doesn't do anything for you. In fact, it degrades you. That's one kind of pleasure. That's called rajasic. There's another kind of pleasure, which is not pleasurable right away. You have to make an effort to understand it and cultivate it. And then after some time, you begin to enjoy it. And that over a long period of time, it nourishes you, it elevates you. And the second kind of pleasure, which is called sattvic pleasure, is actually more pleasurable than the first kind. Okay, so the difference is, the first kind, you don't have to put in any effort into it. Popular music, for example. So it's already, you just listen to it, and you can see people are moving to the rhythm, it's foot tapping to the beat. It's designed in such a way that it'll appeal to just about everybody without effort. And the Gita says, it's like nectar in the beginning, but poison in the end. But poison in the end. There's a kind of pleasure which is nectar in the beginning, but poison in the... Nectar in the beginning means it's really nice immediately.
Yeah.
But very soon, it leaves a bad taste in your mouth. It degrades you physically, emotionally, intellectually, morally. So it's like poison. Whereas there's another kind of pleasure. Suppose classical music or dance or art or cinema. It might take a little effort to cultivate it, but then it gives much deeper joy. So the Gita says it's like poison in the beginning, but it's like nectar in the end. Poison in the beginning because it takes effort. It takes effort. It takes a lot of effort to learn classical music. Even to, not just to play it. I mean, not playing it obviously, or singing, but even just to appreciate it. One needs to pick up some stuff. It's not immediate. It might be nice, but it's more and more, it's nicer still. The more one knows about it, the more one cultivates it. And that's true of everything. It's true of filmmaking. It's true of acting. It's true of writing, of all kinds of art and philosophy. All higher culture requires a little bit of effort. It's not entertaining at the beginning, but afterwards it's entertaining at a deeper, finer level. And you all feel better off after that. So this is an insight which I think the entertainment industry could use. Because if your goal is, as you said, it's just entertainment. All right, then just entertain. But entertain do a good job of it.
Yeah, no, Very well said. I could talk to you for so many hours right now about so many things, but I feel like I should bring this conversation to an end.
Thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you so much for being here. Truly an honor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you guys like this episode, please do subscribe for more podcasts coming your way. This would really mean a lot to me because you subscribing would mean us getting more guests on the show and having more interesting conversations. I really appreciate your support. Thank you so much.